The janitor's entry into the Galactic Gladiator arena was uneventful, typical for Sam. He was just a regular guy, another worker from a remote planet, hired by the arena management to maintain cleanliness. For Sam, this was merely another gig in a series of odd jobs. He had stumbled into this role through an Interstellar job agency, and this particular placement just happened to fall into his lap. He considered it an improvement over the factory jobs back on Earth. At least this job offered him a glimpse of different worlds. The arena was an architectural wonder of alien design, its towering spires piercing the sky of the desert planet. Its shining domes attracted huge crowds from across the galaxy. Inside, the relentless cheers of the audience filled the air, a continuous rumble of thrill and thirst for combat. The scent of sweat, machine oil, and a subtle hint of blood lingered everywhere. Gladiators here fought to the death daily, with their battles streamed across numerous star systems. To Sam, though, it was merely his workplace. He mostly wandered the less glamorous backstage areas, far from the action, where the sounds of the crowd were just a distant echo. His job was straightforward: clean up the mess from the matches, keep the fighters' quarters tidy, and ensure the spectator zones were spotless for the next event. But working here was more than just a cleaning gig. It also involved enduring the constant ridicule from the gladiators. They were the main attraction, giants from across the universe, bred for battle, their bodies sculpted by relentless training. They came in diverse forms, some with gleaming scales, others encased in natural armor, and a few whose bodies defied earthly biology. Next to them, Sam, at 5 feet 9 inches and lean, seemed insignificant. He was practically invisible, but invisibility was impossible when the gladiators sought their amusement. The taunting started subtly. A massive warrior with stone-like skin scoffed as Sam wheeled his mop bucket past him. "Watch that mop, tiny human," the gladiator growled, his voice deep and coarse. "Don't drop it. You wouldn't want to get injured." His fellow fighters chuckled, their laughter resounding off the walls, jarring Sam's senses. Sam chose to ignore them, keeping his gaze lowered and focusing on the next spot to clean. His strategy was simple: avoid making eye contact, steer clear of trouble. He wasn't there to make friends or stand out. He just wanted to finish his work, collect his wages, and leave. Yet, the more he tried to ignore their jibes, the more intense they grew. By the end of his first week, Sam had unwittingly become their favorite target. They ridiculed his frail human build, his basic equipment, and his feeble efforts to clean up their never-ending mess. In one instance, a particularly spiteful gladiator dumped a pail of alien muck onto the floor Sam had just cleaned, grinning as the human resignedly started cleaning again. "Watch him go," the gladiator taunted his peers, so docile, almost like a pet. The silence of the early morning was a stark contrast to the usual cacophony that filled the arena. The dim lights cast long shadows as Sam made his way through the quiet halls, the soft echo of his footsteps a constant companion. He appreciated these moments of solitude, where he could work without the scrutiny and taunts of the gladiators. As he approached the main arena, he noticed something unusual, a faint glimmering light emanating from one of the lesser-used side chambers. Curious, Sam ventured closer, his usual caution overridden by intrigue. The light grew brighter as he neared the door, which was ajar, unusual given the tight security around the arena. Peering inside, Sam discovered the source of the light. It was a weapon, unlike anything he had seen before in the arena's armory. It was sleek and seemed to pulse with a living energy, its surface shimmering with a light that seemed to breathe. Drawn to its beauty and power, Sam stepped inside the chamber, his hands reaching out almost involuntarily. The moment his fingers brushed the weapon's surface, a surge of energy jolted through him. Startled, he tried to pull away, but the weapon seemed to bond with him, its light enveloping him in a warm glow. The sensation was overwhelming but not painful. Instead, it filled him with a sense of strength and clarity he had never known. As the light subsided, Sam stood there transformed. His body felt different, stronger, more agile. The weapon had somehow altered him, enhancing his physical abilities. With a mixture of awe and uncertainty, he examined his hands, his senses tingling with newfound power. Back in the corridor, the weapon secured at his side, Sam felt a change in his perception of the world around him. No longer did he see the arena as just a workplace. It was a battleground, and he was no longer just a janitor but a potential contender. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. Sam continued his chores, but his mind was elsewhere, processing his transformation. He was still formulating a plan when the opportunity presented itself in an unexpected way. Later that day, during a minor scuffle between two midway third-ranking gladiators. One of them accidentally collided with Sam. Instinctively, Sam reacted, his movements swift and precise. Before he knew what was happening, he had deflected the gladiator with ease, sending him sprawling across the floor. The arena fell silent, all eyes on the seemingly insignificant janitor who had just felled a seasoned fighter. Sam stood there, his heart pounding, as realization dawned on both him and the spectators. He was no longer invisible. He was a force to be reckoned with. Word of his unexpected prowess spread quickly, and whispers began to circulate about the mysterious janitor with the strange new weapon. As the days passed, Sam's reputation grew. He was challenged more frequently, each encounter testing his skills and proving his worth. With each victory, his confidence soared, and the mockery he had endured transformed into a grudging respect. Sam had discovered his calling not by seeking it, but by embracing the path that unfolded before him. The arena that had once been his prison of ridicule became his stage of triumph, and he, a mere janitor, became a legend in his own right, changing his fate in ways he never could have imagined. Faced with the scattered mess and the echo of harsh laughter, Sam's initial instinct was to explode in anger, but he reined in his emotions, understanding the consequences of lashing out in such a volatile environment. He exhaled slowly, trying to steady his trembling hands and quell the anger boiling inside him. He knew that reacting would only fuel their cruelty further. Instead, he bent down silently and began to clean up the mess. Each movement of his mop was deliberate, trying to maintain his composure under the mocking eyes of the towering gladiators. As he worked, he could hear their snickers and sneers, but he focused on the rhythmic swish of the mop, allowing it to anchor him against the surge of his emotions. Korvac and his group, satisfied with their torment, eventually grew bored of Sam's lack of reaction. Their laughter faded as they moved on to prepare for their upcoming matches, leaving Sam alone in the echoing chamber with the mess they had made. Once they were gone, Sam allowed himself a moment to lean against the wall, closing his eyes and taking deep, steadying breaths. The quiet after the gladiator's departure was a small solace, but it was fleeting. He knew that as long as he was in the arena, moments like these would be a common occurrence. Despite the ongoing harassment, Sam was not without his own form of quiet resistance. He knew that enduring their mockery and continuing to do his job with as much dignity as possible was a strength they couldn't understand. It was his way of standing up to them without ever throwing a punch, a silent testament to his resilience. Sam resumed his cleaning, each stroke of the mop a bit more forceful than necessary. He was tired of being seen as nothing more than the arena's janitor, a backdrop to their grandiose displays of strength and power. In his mind, he started to imagine a different life, one where he wasn't bound by his current role, a life where his worth wasn't determined by his job or the uniform he wore. As he pushed the mop across the floor, his thoughts wandered to the hidden corners of the arena, to the mysterious weapon he had found weeks ago. It was a reminder that there were still unknown factors at play, elements even these mighty gladiators didn't know about. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way for him to change his story. But for now, he had a floor to clean, and he would do it with all the excellence he could muster, regardless of the disdain it earned him. Each clean sweep was a small victory, a tiny reclaiming of his space in a world that sought to diminish him. Sam held onto the hope that someday, somehow, he would find a way to turn the tables, to rise above the mockery, and see himself transformed not just in his dreams, but in reality. It'll be over before you know it. With a cruel smirk, Korvac gave Sam a gentle shove towards the center of the arena. The gate behind him creaked ominously as it began to close, sealing off any possibility of retreat. Sam's heart raced as he stood alone in the middle of the arena, the jeers and cheers of the unseen crowd reverberating around him. The air was thick with anticipation, and the ground vibrated with the footsteps of the approaching combatant. As he stood there, the reality of his situation set in. He wasn't just in danger. He was about to be part of the entertainment, a spectacle for a crowd that thrived on violence and brutality. The humiliation of his daily life as a janitor was nothing compared to the fear that now gripped him. He felt exposed, vulnerable, and utterly powerless. Then, from the opposite gate, emerged his opponent, a towering figure clad in battle armor, its surface scarred from countless previous fights. The combatant's eyes glinted with a predatory gleam as it moved towards Sam with a slow, menacing pace. Sam knew he had no chance in a direct confrontation. He wasn't a warrior. He didn't even know how to defend himself properly. His only advantage was his speed and his wits, which seemed pitifully inadequate in the face of such a formidable adversary. As the distance between them closed, Sam's mind raced. He scanned the arena floor, looking for anything that might give him an edge. His eyes caught sight of a piece of debris, likely remnants from a previous match. It wasn't much, but it was something. Just as the combatant combatant was about to reach him, Sam darted to the side, his movements fueled by pure adrenaline. He grabbed the debris, a broken shaft of some sort, and swung it with all his might at his opponent's legs. The impact was less than he had hoped for, barely causing the combatant to stumble, but it bought him a precious few seconds. Run, his mind screamed at him, and he did, circling the perimeter of the arena, trying to put as much distance as possible between himself and the combatant. The crowd's boos and jeers filled the air, a cacophony of noise that seemed both to mock and spur him on. Sam's breaths came in ragged gasps as he searched desperately for a way out, but there was none. The gates were sealed, and the high walls of the arena loomed impassable. His only choice was to keep moving, to keep dodging. Then, something unexpected happened. The combatant, perhaps frustrated by Sam's evasiveness or maybe just careless, charged at him recklessly. Sam barely managed to duck out of the way, and the combatant crashed into the arena wall with a thunderous impact. The crowd went silent for a moment, then erupted in a mixture of shock and excitement. Sam didn't pause to consider his luck. He knew this might be his only chance. He climbed onto the combatant's back, using the height to reach a maintenance hatch he had noticed earlier in his duties, a small, overlooked detail that could be his escape. With trembling hands, he pried open the hatch and hoisted himself up, disappearing from the view of the stunned spectators. Inside the narrow passage, he crawled as quickly as he could, the sounds of the arena fading behind him. He was bruised, terrified, and utterly exhausted, but he was alive. Sam's escape from the arena floor didn't go unnoticed. It sparked whispers and rumors among the workers and even among some of the gladiators. For once, the janitor wasn't just a background figure to be mocked, but a survivor of the arena's cruelty. This unexpected turn of events didn't change the harsh realities of his daily life, but it gave him a new kind of respect, one earned not through combat prowess but through sheer will to survive. The tension in the air was thick as the two circled each other, sizing up their next moves. The reptilian warrior, despite its injury, was still a formidable opponent, and it snarled, baring its sharp teeth in a display meant to intimidate. Sam could feel the primal fear clawing at his resolve, but he stood his ground, clutching the makeshift weapon. He noticed the warrior's slight hesitation due to the injury, a vulnerability he hadn't expected but was ready to exploit. Each step he took was measured, conserving his energy for the crucial moment when he would need it most. As the warrior lunged again, its massive body moving with surprising speed, Sam dodged to the left, feeling the rush of air as sharp claws swiped where he had stood just moments before. The crowd's reaction was mixed, some cheering for the spectacle, others booing the human who dared to evade defeat. Drawing on every scrap of resilience he had, Sam anticipated the warrior's next move. It was slower now, the wound on its arm clearly affecting its agility. Seeing his chance, Sam charged forward as the warrior recoiled, using the spear to thrust at its exposed side. The spear found its mark, pushing into the soft underbelly of the beast. The warrior let out a roar of pain, its eyes widening in shock. Blood spilled onto the sand, dark and viscous. The crowd went wild, the noise reaching a crescendo as they witnessed the unexpected turn of events. Sam pulled the spear free, backing away as the warrior staggered. His heart was pounding, and sweat dripped into his eyes, but there was a newfound confidence in his posture. He had come into the arena a victim, but now he was a warrior in his own right. The reptilian warrior, hurt and humbled, paused and regarded Sam with what seemed like a new sense of respect. It hissed, a low sound that filled the silent gaps between the crowd's cheers. Then, in a move that surprised everyone, including Sam, it retreated, stepping back and lowering its arms, a universal sign of yielding. The announcer's voice broke the tension, booming through the speakers. "What a surprise, ladies and gentlemen. It seems we have a new contender in the arena. Let's hear it for Sam, the human who defied the odds." Sam stood breathless, the spear still in hand, as he looked around at the thousands of alien faces. Some were still jeering, but many were clapping, their expressions showing a mixture of respect and astonishment. He didn't know if this moment would change everything or if it was just a brief reprieve from his life as a janitor, but one thing was certain. He had proven to himself and to everyone watching that he was more than they had assumed. He was not just a janitor, not just a human, but a fighter capable of holding his own in the most unlikely of places. As the gates opened and he walked out of the arena, the cheers followed him, a sound he would never forget. This experience, harrowing as it was, had shown him that even in the face of overwhelming odds, there was always a chance to turn the tables, to fight back, and to rise above. But as the warrior's shadow loomed over him, a sudden calm settled over Sam. If this was to be his end, he would face it head-on, not as a victim, but as a man who had chosen to stand his ground. Drawing a deep breath, Sam shifted his stance, his eyes never leaving the massive creature before him. He had no weapon, no armor, just his wits and the raw determination determination to survive. The warrior's movements were calculated, each step deliberate as it prepared to strike. The crowd's jeering grew louder, their excitement palpable as they anticipated a swift kill. But Sam wasn't ready to give them what they wanted. As the warrior lunged, its jaws wide open, Sam acted on pure instinct. He darted forward instead of back, slipping beneath the creature's outstretched claws, surprisingly agile. The crowd gasped, their laughter turning to murmurs of confusion. Sam reached the center of the arena, his heart pounding in his chest as he turned to face his attacker. The warrior, taken aback by the unexpected maneuver, paused, its yellow eyes narrowing in surprise and, perhaps, a hint of respect. Sam knew he couldn't outrun or outfight the creature in a prolonged battle. His only chance was to outsmart it. He eyed the arena, noting the scattered debris from previous fights. With a quick dash, he grabbed a broken spear shaft lying nearby. The warrior roared, enraged by the delay in its victory. It charged again, faster and more ferocious than before. Sam braced himself, holding the spear shaft like a staff. As the beast neared, he swung with all his might, aiming for its sensitive snout. The wood connected with a solid thwack, causing the warrior to recoil and shake its head, stunned by the blow. The crowd was silent now, their earlier mockery replaced by rapt attention. They watched as the human, clearly outmatched in strength and size, used his agility and environment to his advantage. Emboldened by the success of his strike, Sam kept moving, weaving through the arena, using his speed to stay out of the warrior's reach. The creature, growing more irritated and less cautious, snapped at him repeatedly, but Sam dodged each attack, slowly leading the warrior toward the arena's wall. With a quick glance, Sam measured the distance to a large piece of arena wall that had crumbled during earlier matches. As the warrior charged once more, Sam sidestepped at the last second, and the creature, unable to stop its momentum, crashed into the wall. A large chunk of stone fell, hitting the warrior on the back. The impact dazed the creature, and it staggered, giving Sam a crucial moment to act. He climbed onto the fallen debris, standing above the stunned warrior. The arena, now completely silent, watched as Sam raised his makeshift weapon high. With a shout, Sam drove the broken spear shaft down, targeting the warrior's exposed neck. The wood pierced through, and the mighty creature let out a final, pained roar before collapsing onto the sand. As the reality of what had just happened settled over the arena, a slow, resounding cheer began to rise from the crowd. They had come expecting a quick, brutal kill, but instead, they had witnessed an epic battle of survival and courage. Sam, breathing heavily, stood over the fallen warrior, his body trembling not just from exertion but from the adrenaline and shock of his own survival. The announcer's voice finally broke the stunned silence, booming louder than ever. Victory to Sam, the human who turned the arena on its head. What a match! As the gates opened for him to exit, Sam walked out of the arena, not as a janitor, but as a true gladiator who had earned the respect of the galaxy. His story would be told and retold, not just as a tale of survival, but as a testament to the strength of the human spirit against overwhelming odds. The force of the creature's blows was relentless, each one testing Sam's resolve and strength. The crude shield was hardly enough to absorb the full impact of the warrior's fierce attacks, but it gave Sam crucial moments to think, to plan his next move in this desperate dance of survival. Pushing back against the pain throbbing in his arm and the exhaustion creeping into his muscles, Sam maneuvered with the shield, using it not just defensively but also as a counterbalance to thrust and parry where he could. The warrior, sensing a shift in tactics, adjusted its approach, its eyes burning with a mix of frustration and grudging respect for its human adversary. In the stands, the spectators' initial amusement was replaced by a gripping tension. What had started as a grotesque mismatch was unfolding into a true contest of endurance and wit. Whispers and shouts filled the air, some rooting for the downfall of the mighty beast, others marveling at the human's tenacity. Sam felt the eyes upon him, felt the weight of expectation and disbelief, and it fueled him. He knew he couldn't outmuscle the beast, but perhaps he could outlast it. He needed to turn the fight into a battle of attrition, to wear the creature down until it made a mistake he could exploit. The warrior attacked again, its movements now slightly sluggish, the wound on its side leaking dark fluid onto the sand. Sam used the shield to deflect another swipe, then quickly countered, thrusting the jagged edge of the shield toward the creature's face. It was a desperate move, but it connected, catching the beast across the cheek and eliciting a roar of pain. Stunned, the warrior recoiled, shaking its head to clear the shock. Sam didn't waste the opportunity. Dropping the shield, he rushed back to the spot where he had seen a more substantial piece of debris, a large metal rod, possibly part of a broken weapon or gate. His fingers wrapped around the cool metal, lifting it with both hands. It was heavier than the shield, unwieldy, but it had a pointed end that could do real damage. As the creature regained its bearings and turned to face him, Sam swung the rod with all his might, aiming for the same tender area he had wounded before. The metal struck true, sinking deeper into the creature's side. The warrior let out a pained, furious bellow, its body jerking spasmodically. For a moment, it seemed as if it might overcome the pain, as if it might rally for another charge. But then its legs buckled, and it collapsed onto the sand, breathing heavily but no longer able to fight. A hush fell over the arena, broken moments later by a thunderous applause. The crowd had turned fully in Sam's favor, their cheers and claps acknowledging the incredible feat they had just witnessed. From feared beast to fallen titan, the warrior's defeat marked an unprecedented victory for the underdog, for the human who had refused to yield. Sam stood over the downed creature, his chest heaving with exertion, the metal rod slipping from his grasp to clatter on the arena floor. He looked around, his gaze meeting thousands of alien eyes, all fixed on him. In that moment, he was no longer the arena's janitor. He was its champion, its unexpected hero. The gate to the exit swung open, and Sam walked towards it, his steps slow and unsteady but unyielding. As he passed through, leaving the arena and the defeated warrior behind, he knew that his life had changed forever. He had shown not only to those who watched but to himself that courage and cleverness could defy the mightiest odds. His victory was not just about survival but about redefining what it meant to be a fighter. Korvac approached, his massive frame casting a shadow over Sam. The other gladiators hung back, their expressions a mix of shock and curiosity. There was a pause, a silent acknowledgement of the shift in dynamics, before Korvac finally spoke. "Human," he began, his voice deep and resonant, echoing slightly in the now quiet arena. "You fought well, better than any of us expected." Sam, too exhausted to be wary, simply nodded, waiting for more. Korvac's eyes, glowing slightly in the dim light of the arena, scanned Sam from head to toe. "You have earned my respect, and that of the others." He gestured behind him, where the other gladiators stood. A few nodded, though their expressions were still tinged with disbelief. "It is not often," Korvac continued, "that we see such determination, such courage. You have shown great strength today, not just of body, but of spirit." Sam's shoulders, tense with fatigue and pain, relaxed slightly at the words. It wasn't just the physical fight that had drained him. It was the constant battle against the crowd's expectations, against his own doubts. "Thank you," Sam managed to say, his voice hoarse. "I just did what I had to do." Korvac nodded, understanding flashing in his eyes. "Sometimes that is all we can do. And sometimes," he paused, looking back at the other gladiators who were now stepping forward, "it is enough." One by one, the other gladiators approached, each offering a nod or a gesture of respect. Some even clapped Sam on the shoulder, their touches light but meaningful. It was an acknowledgement of his status not just as a victor, but as a warrior in his own right. As the moments passed, the atmosphere in the arena shifted from one of hostility to one of camaraderie. The gladiators, creatures of war and battle, recognized one of their own, even if he had come from the humblest of beginnings. Finally, Korvac spoke again. "You will always be welcome here, among us. Fight with us, learn with us. You have proven yourself worthy." Sam, overwhelmed and still processing the sudden change in his life, simply nodded. He wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time since he'd been thrust into the arena, he felt a sense of belonging. As the gate to the arena closed behind him, Sam stepped into a new world. The jeers had turned to cheers, the mockery to respect. He was no longer the arena's janitor. He was its newest gladiator, its unexpected hero. The crowd's chants followed him as he made his way back to the gladiators' quarters, their voices a steady drumbeat that matched the pounding in his heart. "Janitor, janitor," they shouted, but now the name was not an insult, but a title, a name that had been forged in the heat of battle and sealed with the respect of the fiercest warriors in the galaxy. Sam's journey had begun as a fight for survival, but it had ended as something much more, a testament to the power of resilience and the unexpected paths that courage can forge. "You're right," Korvac admitted, his eyes never leaving Sam's. "You were thrown into the arena without choice, forced into a battle you didn't seek. But how you faced that challenge, how you turned your situation from certain defeat to victory, that was your choice. And in that choice, you showed us all something about your character." Sam's shoulders sagged slightly, the tension easing as he listened to Korvac's words. It was true he hadn't chosen to fight, but he had chosen how to face the fight. Korvac continued, "In this place we respect strength, but not just the strength of arms. We respect the strength of spirit. You have that in abundance." Looking around at the silent gladiators, Sam realized that their respect was not given lightly. It was earned through displays of courage and resilience, qualities he had shown despite the overwhelming odds. The realization didn't erase the pain or the fear he had felt, but it offered a small comfort. Maybe so, Sam Sam replied, his voice steadier. But what now? Do I go back to mopping floors? Or do I keep fighting, keep proving myself? Korvac nodded thoughtfully. That choice is yours to make. You can return to your duties, and no one here will think less of you for it. Or you can train, become one of us, and fight not because you must, but because you choose to. Sam considered this the idea of choosing his path rather than having it chosen for him. It was a freedom he hadn't expected to find in the confines of the gladiatorial arena. For now, I need to heal, Sam said finally, pushing off from the doorframe. After that, I'll decide. Korvac clapped a heavy hand on Sam's shoulder, the gesture surprisingly gentle. Then heal and heal well. The arena will always be here, and so will the choice. As Korvac turned and walked away, his figure receding into the dim light of the corridor, Sam felt a wave of exhaustion wash over him. He stepped back into the janitor's closet, his sanctuary amid the chaos of the arena. Inside, he sank down against the wall, his body aching in a dozen places. As he sat there, the adrenaline fading and leaving him with his thoughts, Sam realized that today had changed him. He had faced death, fought for his life, and emerged not just alive but transformed. Whatever decision he made next, whether to remain a janitor or to become something more, it would be on his own terms. The respect of the gladiators, the cheers of the crowd, the nod from Korvac, all these were significant, but more important was the new sense of self-respect Sam felt, forged in the heat of battle and the silence of his aftermath. In the quiet of the storage closet, with the sounds of the arena now just a distant echo, Sam closed his eyes and allowed himself a moment of rest. Tomorrow, the world would be waiting for him with all its challenges and choices. But for now, he had earned his rest, and he would take it. Sam returned to his daily routine, but the whispers and nods of recognition continued. The arena, once a place of intimidation and fear, now offered him a strange sense of belonging. His interactions with the other staff and the gladiators grew more personal and respectful. Even the new janitors looked up to him, asking him for advice not just about cleaning, but about handling the rough atmosphere of the arena. Days turned into weeks, and Sam found a new rhythm. His life was still about mops and buckets, but now there was an undercurrent of respect that changed how he felt about his work. He knew he was more than just a janitor. He was a symbol of courage and resilience. Sometimes, late at night when the arena was quiet, Sam would walk out into the center of the empty pit. The moonlight or the artificial lights would cast giant shadows, and he would stand there, remembering the fear, the adrenaline, the moment of triumph. These moments weren't about longing for the fight, but about understanding his journey. One evening, as he stood in the center of the arena, Exer approached him. Her steps were silent, her presence almost ghost-like. "You look like a gladiator pondering his next battle," she commented, her voice echoing slightly in the vast space. Sam smiled, shaking his head. "Just thinking," he replied. "Not about fighting, but about everything that's happened." Exer nodded, her bright eyes reflecting a thoughtful expression. "It's a rare thing," she said, "to see someone redefine themselves on their own terms. Even rarer for others to accept it as you have." Sam looked around the empty arena, his home for so long now a place of personal revelation. "I guess I found my own way of fighting," he said, more to himself than to Exer. "And you've won more than you realize," Exer added. "Not many can claim to have changed the hearts of those around them simply by being who they are." As they left the arena together, the cool night air felt refreshing, a stark contrast to the intensity of the days when battles raged. Sam felt a quiet pride in his heart. He hadn't changed the world, but he had changed his world, and that was enough. From then on, every time he stepped into the arena, whether to clean up after a match or to stand alone in the quiet, Sam knew that this place, which had once been a source of fear, was now a source of strength. It was not the cheering crowd or the thrill of combat that gave him peace. It was the knowledge that he had faced his greatest challenge and emerged not just unbroken but stronger. And as the years passed, the legend of the janitor gladiator continued to inspire those who heard it, a reminder that sometimes the greatest battles are those we fight within ourselves, and the truest victories are those that bring us peace.